Hey everybody, Succeedu here, host of Fit Founders, and today I'm joined by Luke Johnson, and we're going to talk all about his career, his journey, what he's up to today, and the various businesses that he's founded in the industry. Luke, thanks for joining me.
Cheers, Suk. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad it's video. And I asked the question beforehand. It was like, is it video? Yes. Go and get a fresh fade. So I know we're both rocking the fades.
Yeah, both of us. And I don't know
So
if I'm
if you
getting a bit
what?
old for a skin fade. What do you think?
Nah. We're good. I think when we start really going grey, the fade will be like a necessity because obviously we just don't want to throw too much grey on the sides.
Yeah, I don't know whether to go all in on grey soon and just do the whole dye it grey, dye the beard grey. Is that what's his name? Gordon Ryan, the jiu-jitsu
Okay.
guy?
Yeah.
And just be a bit like him, but minus the jujitsu and the badass, just the grey.
Yeah. And the steroids.
Yeah, minus the steroids. Um, cool. So, Luke, for those listeners that don't know who you are, do you want to just give a very top or high level overview of who you are and a bit about your background?
Yeah, so I got into fitness. Well, basically become a fitness instructor when I was 18 because, and we'll talk about it later on as well because I've seen notes. But with when I was 18, I was like, I don't want to get a job. Like all of my mates were getting jobs in sort of retail. I was like, I don't want to get a job in retail. And my parents was always much like, focus on your studies, focus on your studies. You don't need a job. We'll look after you until you're 18. But it was always that pressure of, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? And I didn't have a clue. Um, when I was 18, though, at my first year of university, that's when I started. I was probably lifting weights maybe a year or two before, but my background was in karate, competed at like international level for karate. And then as I got older and you're the skinny kid, you're like, hey, I'll start lifting some weights. And then you start putting some muscle and then you get that sort of gym addiction that a lot of people go through, especially those which then go on to become personal trainers. And yeah, I just started. My ex-girlfriend's mum at the time was going to a gym, Bannatyne's gym in Grove Park. And I said, what do I need to get a job in the gym? She asked the manager, the general manager, who's a bit of a perv, probably fancied her amongst all the other people. And he's like, yeah, sit down, we'll have a coffee, and I'll tell you what you need to do. So then I realized that I had to get a level 2 fitness instructing qualification. So I did mine in 2 weeks at the Great YMCA on Great Russell Street.
Brilliant.
That was the hunting ground back in the days. And once I got I think it was about £700 at the time. With inflation, that was probably quite expensive. It might have been a little bit more. And I think at the time I had to get a credit card that I don't know if it was for level 2 or level 3. One of them I had to get a credit card that with my mum and pay it off, as well as obviously having my student loan. So once I had my fitness instructor qualification, basically said, can I have a job? They didn't get back to me, pestered them again. They got back to me. And then I'd work every Saturday morning, like 9:30 to 6, as a fitness instructor. And I did that through when I was throughout university, and I just worked that Saturday. And I'm glad that I did that because at least then I followed my passion. I think passions change all the time as you go through life. And yeah, so that's sort of how I got into the fitness industry. And then after university, I actually wanted to be a secondary school PE teacher. I did fairly well. I got like a 2-1 in my sports science degree, and they rejected me. They rejected me. So, and I think the biggest motivation that I have is when someone tells me I can't do it. So it is really good. I remember when I was, you get like your predicted grades for GCSE, and they gave
Yeah.
me like a C for PE, and I was just like, like, are you serious? Like, have you seen this athletic god at the time? Like, I was good at everything, and I got an A, just missed out on that A star. But I feel I've always been competitive from a young age, and yeah, when they declined me, I then worked in my old secondary school for four weeks work experience for free. Still didn't get in, and I'm glad that I didn't because you spend basically 15 minutes trying to tell kids they got to do PE to get ready, and they don't want to do it, half of them. And then you got like 30 minutes and then another 15 minutes to say, right, you've got to go and get changed to do something else. So personal training weren't really a thing that I was my first option. And then I then started obviously working more full time. And back in the day, you do 20 hours fitness instructor and 20 hours PT. And I consider myself a failed personal trainer, gym floor personal trainer. And I don't know, do you want me to sort of I'll carry on with this, or do you want it like shorten it up a bit? I can go real fast on this last bit. I'll go real fast.
No, I think the story so far is good. One thing that I've got to ask is, at any point so far up to what you've spoke about, was there an entrepreneurial itch? Was there, I'm going to be a business owner in the future? Like, had that even entered your mind?
No, I'd always from a young age, not young, I'd always say I've not been put on this earth to be content with just being average or just going through life. Do you know what I mean? Like the majority just get some grades, go to work for someone, and that's it. They just live day by day, and they're not really doing anything. For me, and I always say I'm just an average man that has the mindset to do more than like bigger than average things. So I wouldn't say I definitely didn't have an entrepreneurial mindset, and it didn't really come until Jamie, my girlfriend, still girlfriend. We're not going to get married. So if you listen to this, Jane, it's out there. I keep saying to her, so, do you want marriage, or do you want like 5 years of like 3 holidays a year? What one would you prefer? Because that's how much it's going to cost. She loves a holiday, the girl. So she's like, we'll stick with the holiday, even though we're 3 kids in now. So when Jamie told me she's, yeah, no. So I didn't really get entrepreneurial until Jamie told me that she was pregnant via WhatsApp, not in person, just a text. Now you like get it and you go, okay, well, this wasn't planned. She was what? Lynn's 10, so she was 21 when she fell pregnant. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was working as a college lecturer. So long story short, didn't like personal training. The girlfriend I was with at the time was a primary school teacher. As you know, gym floor personal training, just starting out, you're basically everyone else's bitch. You work when they aren't working. So early in the morning, during lunch, and after you finish work. And like, that's why I feel like a lot of personal trainers can go to be successful business owners, because they've experienced long ass hours of work and they have more resilience than other people. And I was doing a spin class, and one of the guys, Luigi, worked at Lewisham College, and he said, well, they're looking for a sports lecturer. Have you ever thought about doing sports? Dad also had I think I was 22, 23 at the time. And I was like, no, but I was into sort of anatomy and physiology. That was a thing that was really interesting to me. And I got the guy's number on the Thursday. I texted him on the Friday. I had a job interview on the Monday, and the next Monday I was teaching 40-year-olds.
Amazing.
Like anatomy and physiology, level 2, level 3, BTEC nationals. I was in charge of the apprentices. I was in charge of the gym throughout that time. And I did that for 5 years as a college lecturer. So therefore I've got 2 degrees. So a guy from South East London with Cockney accent has 2 degrees, one in sports science and one in teaching. And I enjoyed teaching, but then I suppose going back to when Jamie told me she was pregnant, I was earning probably 32, 33K a year, and I was still living at home with mummy and daddy. So I was a 23, 24, 25-year-old earning over that. I mean, nowadays it's not the same, but back then it was a decent salary. And it's like, you're in education, it's a secure job. Like, they're always going to need teachers. And then they start getting rid of departments in further education. So like, well, that one a good guess, mum and dad.
No.
So I saved 16 to 17K. And the reason why I saved that was at the time in 2012, beginning of 2012, online coaching wasn't a thing. There was the Strength guys and a guy called Luke Hazlitt. And that was it. There was no one. There was no software like Stridis. I think, what was it? My PT Hub come out in like
that
maybe
wasn't
2000.
I think Trainerize was around first. I think Trainerize was a bit earlier, but it was garbage.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it was available when I started in 2013, beginning of 2013.
Yeah. So there was no sort of coaching software. And at that time as well, I knew that I had a kid coming. And I thought, when this kid comes, probably going to fuck up my life. I'm probably going to have no time. I'm going to have to spend time doing all this other stuff. But I preempted that. And at the time, I still had this idea of I want to be a fitness magazine front cover model. So I saw like Scott Bakti, who I knew at the time. I was like, Scott's all right. He's got a decent physique. He's not bad looking, but I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. So then over a 8-week, 10-week period, I've gone from, I mean, my out of shape then is like good shape now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm half Greek, so I'm fully haired up. I'm eating a lemon ice cream. And I don't even think I trained for like 10 weeks. But between the two photos, I basically ate like a bro. It was boiled eggs and walnuts and paprika for breakfast, no carbs. Only carbs, starchy carbs, one meal of the day. I think it was for dinner, but I probably tried to eat it before 6 p.m. And I got in decent nick. I also waxed my chest. Went to my sister's boyfriend, who's now husband, who's doing photography at the time, went to their flat and did about 300 push-ups and baby oiled the hell out of my chest. Johnson's baby oil. We've got to stick to the loyalty of the company.
Keep it in the family.
Name. That's it. And he took some photos, and I did actually get on I got voted for like I don't know if I was on it. I don't think I've ever got on the front cover of a magazine. But long story short, at the time I was on Twitter, and I just put a before and after photo up, and I put it on my personal Facebook, and I put it on Twitter, and then I just started getting bombarded with messages. And he's like, "What the like? How did like? Can you do that for me?" I'm like, yeah. Well, I'm already working 40 hours a week as a lecturer. What can I do to make money to then be able to move out of my mum and dad's house and then actually be a real adult and have a kid? So then I saved 16 to 17K within 9 months. And that was a combination of making money through online coaching, but also just not buying dumb shit. And I managed to save that. So that I didn't have any, as I said, from a young age, my mum and dad was always like, focus on education. Don't worry about getting a job. So I didn't have no entrepreneurial, I wasn't going around people's houses and going, you want me to cut your grass for $5, clean your windows? I wasn't doing any of that. I do feel like I would have got there, but Jamie being pregnant was the catalyst. No, I think I put a post up like, and I'm calling myself successful, but success is in the eye of the beholder. I feel like anyone that has gone on their own and made some sort of success has a fuck you moment. It was like, oh shit, or a holy shit moment. Be like, I've got to do something. That was the catalyst for me. But yeah, I didn't have any entrepreneurial thing. I suppose when that was just to make money. And then also we'll discuss how that progresses in a bit. But my other entrepreneurial thing, when I was at the college, this was before Jamie was pregnant. We went over to Dallas, and each year it was like Dallas Cup, which was the biggest under-19 football tournament in the world. And as working as a Lewisham College and being a fitness person, I went out there with a couple other tutors. And when we was out there, it was in a shopping mall. And there's these things called power balance bands. Do you remember them, Suk, or do you like, what the hell were they?
No, I don't think I do.
No. So in the malls, you've got obviously the pop-up things. And they're like, put a nice fit bird on there. And then, hey, come and try this. And shit, this was like a rubber band, which had two things on it. It had like, and they sold it, had like electrons or ions, and it would help you with your health and athletic performance. And one of the tests was stand on one foot, put your arms out, and then I'm going to push on one arm, and you're going to tip over. And then it was going, okay, now hold this band, and then do it again. And for whatever reason, sir, it worked. And it's probably, and I tested this as well. Was like, hold the band first and then don't hold the band. And it worked for whatever reason. Placebo, nocebo, whatever it was. And I remember going back to the UK thinking, right, I'm going to search these up. And I went on Alibaba and I bought 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it cost. Probably like 200-300 quid. And then probably illegally, I just started selling them to all the students and staff at the college. And I suppose that was my first entrepreneurial thing. And that was the first time where I didn't sell 1,000 of them. They're probably still in my mum's loft, like another 200, 300 of them. But I sold enough where I probably quadrupled, maybe 6 times my money. So that was the first time where I had sort of some entrepreneurial thing in me. And I used exactly the same tactics that the girl used on me with them. And that's when I was like, all right, it's like £15 for one, or if you want two, it's 20 quid. People will just buy two. So that was sort of the first entrepreneurial experience. And that went into, I was probably 22, 23.
It sounds like it just kind of, you weren't thinking, oh, I'm going to be a business owner, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of, you just did it organically, which I think is common for a lot of people who just kind of stumble into being a business owner.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, so you're lecturing at Lewisham. You're starting to work with clients online after your baby oil photo shoot.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the picture of that. I think I remember those pictures. Talk to me about online coaching. How did that go? And is that what triggered leaving your 9 to 5?
Yeah. So originally I was having a conversation with your mum and dad, and it was the whole thing when it's like, you've got a kid coming now, and like, you've got a secure job in education, like you shouldn't do it. And originally I wasn't going to go, just sack it off and do my own thing. My original plans was to then go down to maybe like a 0.8 or 0.5 contract. And at the time is when I started learning about evidence-based, science-based information. So I was aware of a guy called Alan Aragon, and I signed up to his research review that he's been doing for years and years. And I was like, why is it that when I search stuff on the internet, I'm seeing all of this stuff, and this guy is contradicting everything that I thought was true based on what I've seen from the marketers of the fitness industry, which are always going to be ranked highest when you type something on Google. And back in them days, it was SEO. It wasn't really social media and stuff like that. And then one of the guys at the time was named Joseph Agu, and he was literally calling out every single person that I was following for their bullshit. And I was like, that was how he created a name for himself. But he was far more intelligent than I was. He was working at the English Institute of Sport, and his background is obviously nutrition. And I paid him money for Skype, and I had a list of stuff. I was like, what's like the wheat belly book? Is that any good? Bullshit. What's like metabolic typing? Bullshit. What about like the alkaline diet? Bullshit. And I was like, wow. So it weren't until then I started just being far more questioning stuff. And then he put me onto Alan Aragon. And then I can't remember how many clients I had. Also, I managed to save 16, 17K within a 9-month period. But then I sent an email to Alan Aragon, because he'd have his email at the end of each research review. And I said, would you come over to the UK for a conference? I'll cover your accommodation, your travel, and you'll get a fee. He didn't get back to me. But then I was following, when you start stalking, like fanboy, and you start stalking people on the internet, and at the time it's Facebook. I think he was already at another event. So I was like, all right. So I emailed him again 1 week later, and he got back to me. I was like, that was like 3, 4 in the morning, or whatever time it was. And obviously you got a kid by then. So you're awake at those times. So I checked my phone, and I woke up and I was like, Alan's got back to me. He said he's interested. So then I've got this Skype with this guy, and I'm like fanboying over him. And then he says yes. The fee was $2,000. It was nothing, because we made 29 grand in a weekend. But then I was at that point, I'm making money from online coaching. I've managed to get Alan Aragon, and we're making 28, 29 grand in a weekend, which was close to my salary. And when Alan said he was game, I looked at who was on the research papers with him, and Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. I reached out to Brad. Hi, Brad. I'm the guy that managed to get Alan Aragon to come over to the UK for a conference. Would you be interested? He then messages Alan. He's like, who the fuck's this Luke Johnston guy? And Alan's like, I don't know, but I've had a call with him, and he seemed pretty cool. It was like, they enjoyed that. I was just a normal, down to earth guy who's now got a kid that is trying to, again, is bringing over these people, because they wasn't there before. So like, no one was there. Like, Alan was over in 2013, and there was no real UK based individual that were putting content out that was science based. And then when Brad said yes, I then reached out to Dr. Eric Helms. Now I was like, I'm the guy that got Alan and Brad to agree to come over. Will you come over to do something on like natural bodybuilding? So at the time, also, you have your interest in sort of the bodybuilding, and then it sort of moved into powerlifting, and they have their sort of, they're still a thing, but they have their years where they're really trending, where everyone wants to be a physique athlete and everyone wants to be a powerlifter. So once I had that and I had the revenue coming in for the conferences and online coaching, and I took on another guy, Danny Group. So then it was Luke Johnson PT. I had Tom Adams or Thomas Moore, like TM Cycles. People may know of him, listen to a podcast. He was my apprentice at the college, and he designed a shitty little logo where it was Luke Johnson with a barbell, with a grey barbell and some light blue bumper plates. And that's when I just quit my job, because I had that money coming in, and I was like, what's the point? I'm just going to do it. And it was the best decision that I made. And it's probably been a detriment to a certain degree, as in I feel, and I don't know, I've been looking into like ADHD. I feel like I may have it, but I probably won't go and get diagnosed and stuff like that. But with me, if anything's in my diary in a week and I've not had a say on it, I feel suffocated. So I've gone from, hey, Luke, you're an employed member of staff. This is how much you're worth to us per year. You've got to be at this classroom at this time, teaching this subject, this lesson. So then once I had a taste of the other stuff, I was like, there's no way that I could go back. No way whatsoever that I could go back. And then when I started online coaching, I took Danny on. I thought, well, I can't, if I want to expand, I can't just be Luke Johnson PT. I'll have to come up with a name. So when Eric Helms agreed to come over, we were coming up with what name should we call the seminar or the conference? And me and Joe Agoo's helping at the time was Shredded by Science. And Joe bought the domain name because he knew how to do that. I didn't know how to do it. Shredded by Science. And then I'm thinking, well, I've been doing online coaching for enough now. And it ain't the Zoom shit where you're jumping around coaching. It's like you're just basically programming for them, telling them what to do nutrition-wise, weekly check-in and email support. And I soon started to realize that Josh, who was 21 years of age at university, loved to train, was already using MyFitnessPal, was an absolute joy to coach online. But then I was coaching his mum, Debbie, and she was an absolute nightmare because she'd been on every yo-yo diet. She didn't know the difference between a carb and a protein. She didn't know the difference between a squat and a deadlift. And then that's when I stopped really reading the scientific papers, and I was going, I need to now, as a business owner, spend all my time, energy, and effort in learning business, marketing, sales. And I'd spend that time I would spend on geeking out on scientific papers, trying to pretend what I knew what a p-value was, which I do now, but at the time you don't. And I feel like with any industry, there's the bro side, which is like fish and rice cakes, and then there's the science base. And I feel like the best bit is probably just to be slightly in the middle or more to where there's scientific evidence. But I feel like if you're at any extreme end of the continuum, you're probably in the wrong place because you're just talking in absolutes. And as I used to say, if anyone talks in absolutes, they're talking absolute nonsense because there's always context. So then I started looking at like Ryan Lee and people like that and how they would make money online. And I started to get just books and books and books, courses, just to try and get better at marketing. And I knew then that I had to create a brand that I still use it now and like market like a magnet, appeal to the people you want to appeal to and like repel everyone else that you don't want to actually appeal to and pay money. So I knew Debbie wasn't a great fit for online coaching. She was better off doing maybe a groups thing or doing in-person personal training. And I was at McDonald's. I'm enjoying this podcast because I'm learning about storytelling at the moment. I'm telling a lot of stories. And when you're our age, Suk, you've got a lot of time. You have a lot of stories to tell. And I was at McDonald's waiting. Jamie was getting McDonald's, and I was trying to think of this name to come up with for this online coaching company that acted like a magnet. So I wanted the name to be really specific so that anyone that heard it was like, that's not for me, or that really is for me. And at the time, the best one I had was Ripped by Research, because I'm still very science and research based at the time. I was like, that's terrible. But I for months trying to come up with this name. And then when I was waiting for her to get the McDonald's, I was like, why don't I take the name Shredded by Science as a company name? And then when I launch, we're going to launch before Helms comes over. I think this was probably August time. And Eric was due to come over in 2014 in April. And I was like, why don't I call the business Shredded by Science? And Shredded by Science are bringing over Eric Helms to do a seminar on natural bodybuilding. Like, cool. I spoke to Joe. I was like, can I have the domain name? Can you transfer it over to me? If I call my company Shredded by Science, and he was fine with it. And we got it transferred over. And then that's when Shredded by Science was born. And we started off as free coaches. Again, Danny was a guy, I think, either from Twitter or Facebook. And Ali was also someone from Twitter, Facebook. I never met them once. Well, I have met them, but at that time, I'd never met them. And I was just going, oh, these are putting out some good content. Do you want to do online coaching? Do you do online coaching? I do some in person. What about online coaching? I've created these systems. And at the time, when I started, it was a USB stick with some spreadsheets and some Word docs. There was no Dropbox, there's no G Drive, there's no software. And at that time, in 2000, I think I formed Shredded by Science August 2013. And our thing then, the market strategy was just Facebook page. And what we did was we'd create like short mini blogs, which was taking scientific information and like distilling it and making it simplified to people in written content. And we'd put references within the post, hyperlinks within the post. So can you imagine that? You're actually putting it within the post, and you're not putting it in the first comment.
And people actually saw it.
They actually saw it. And at the time, I hired this company to do the website. And at the time, I was like, we can't launch unless we've got a website. And I need the website to actually take payments on the website. And there needs to be a little membership thing and stuff like that. It's supposed to be ready in September. It wasn't ready in September. October, November, December. Time January come round, it was then ready to go. So we've just been putting out content for free on Facebook for 4 or 5 months. And then when we launched, it was like, boom, we're sold out. Like we had so much value and grew a following. Can't remember what it was. And we'd done something stupid like first 10 people get premium coaching. We had like premium coaching, ultimate coaching. So when I first started, it's body transformation, 8 weeks. And then it's total transformation because like, it's not just the body. And then it was just premium coaching and ultimate coaching. Can't remember what the difference was. There would have been some sort of difference with the deliverables. And we'd done something stupid. I think maybe like premium coaching was £49 per month. And then premium was £69 when we first started. Bearing in mind that that point, so that's a regression for me. So I think before I stopped online coaching and under my personal brand, I still did it with SBS. I'd probably charge in £100 to £125 per month. And now I'm going, right, we've got to do this special launch. We grandfathered the price in. And then from 2013 up to 2015, long story short, we went from 3 coaches to 12 coaches all over the world. Like in Netherlands, America, Canada, other places. And we did one-to-one online coaching. We launched a membership called Shreddication. We had probably 1,000 members paying £5, $5.99 a month. I took on the first female coach, Juliana, and that was when we launched the first female group coaching. That was probably 2014. Because again, like online coaching wasn't a thing in 2012, and there was no group coaching. And we launched female group coaching first, and that went really well. I've still got a load of logos, like the Get Shredded with the science atom with like a Wolverine scratch across it. We had the Get Lean, we had the Get Strong, we had the whatever it was. I've still got those versions of the logo. And the female group coaching went well. So we did one-to-one, we did membership, we did female group coaching, male group coaching. Long story short, people, if you're thinking of doing group coaching, works really well with females because they actually like being in a community. Males just don't give a fuck about anyone else apart from themselves. So like having a group coaching experience for males and a community just doesn't work the same. I'm going to say is this based on years of experience and obviously educating personal trainers, moving into trainer education. I don't know what your thoughts are, Suk, as well. Have you tried like group coaching for females versus group coaching for males online, and if there's been differences?
Yeah, to be honest, I never, most of my clients were female when I was a coach, and I had huge group programs, like hundreds in every month. we had more females than males, but we did have males.
Yeah.
We just never specified this is a male. We never did this is a male specific program.
Just naturally targeted more females.
Yeah. But yeah, like again, I've got a few clients who do group programs as well, or previous mentees. Mike and Dan from Biceps and Banter. And again, they don't specify gender.
Yeah.
And they do get a mix, but I think it's still primarily female in their group programs.
Yeah, and I feel like if you look at it, just go to the gym. Like, it leaves clues. You go and look who's in all of the group classes, predominantly it's females.
Yeah.
If you go and look who's predominantly in the weights area, still to this day, but far less, there's far more women in the free weights area. We think back in them days, so it was very much as in, I can't lift weights, I'm going to get bulky. And so we did that, and we launched a coaching guide as well. We started doing it ourselves, but then at that point, that's when I made the decision to go, right, for this business model to work, I would need thousands of clients, and therefore I would need hundreds of coaches. And guess what? There's not that many good coaches at the time. So it's going back to then that's when I launched the SBS Academy in 2015.
Okay, so let me just jump in, because this was a question I was going to ask, and it's, online coaching is clearly going well. Why move into education? You kind of just answered it to some degree there. So what got you thinking of how big you wanted this thing to be, or how much revenue you wanted it to be, and then deciding that you just weren't going to be able to get that big from coaching? Like, why were you even thinking that way?
It was looking at the numbers, and purely like when you're a business and you're VAT registered and you're hiring these coaches, they're not employed by you. And that's why if I still got to do a podcast episode of what I'd do if I was doing online coaching today. And at the time when Danny first started, he was getting 75%. Because look, I'm like, no one was doing it. So how do you know what percentage split you should do? And by that, when I took on all of those coaches, we had systems that literally they would complete a form, they would pay, and then it would take me 20 seconds to set up the Dropbox folder and then share it with a trainer. Obviously, when Danny started, he was on 75%. And when Ali started, I was like, you're on 70%. And then when I started taking on the other coaches, they were on like a percentage scale. That started off on 50%. And then the more clients they had, the more percentage that they got. And it was looking at, well, for those percentages and for that business to work, again, it was one, as in, we'd need to find more clients. We're probably going to then have to start doing paid ads. I didn't have a clue about paid ads at the time. And then the process to become an SBS coach took 4 to 5 weeks. So it was, we're looking for a coach. Send an email with your CV, because that was the thing at the time. And then a 500, like a 250, 500 words thing of why you feel you'll be a good SBS coach. We then filtered through them. Most of them are crap. Next stage, cool. At the time, we created Facebook posts. Here, now it was the second stage. I don't know if it's two different stages or one stage at once, where it was, they then had to create a Facebook post that was in the style of SBS, and we gave them some tips and tricks. And then we also gave them a case study, 2 different case studies, and go, right, this person, and it was more of like, this person's a young dude, wants to get ready to get sex. So how would you coach this? Do a 12-week overview and then give us a 1-month detailed plan, and then tell us how you would coach him nutrition wise and what adjustments you would make. And then the other one was probably someone that wanted to put muscle mass on. And then we'd then filter that process. And then it was interviews. And I was like, because SBS is my baby, still is my baby. And when I rebranded to PTC, which we'll talk about in a bit, because that's the journey of the founder's journey. When I rebranded, my child died, and PTC was an adopted child that I never wanted, or there was not never wanted, but there was no emotional connection. Because you think at the time when my baby came, my actual business started, and that's when it progressed into SBS.
Yeah.
So it was simply going, well, if I want to make 100K, I don't know what my ambitions were at the time there, but it's like, for that business model to work, I would need to have a lot more clients and I'd need to find a lot more trainers and it's going to be a lot of work. But then I went full circle. It was like, well, I was a trainer, then I went into education, then I went into online coaching, and then I went back into education. So the good thing that I had was doing my teaching degree and stuff like that, and looking at level 2 and level 3, and they are a piece of shit. Yeah. Reps are, SimSpa are, it's all crap. We'll talk about it in a bit. And that's when I looked at it, and I looked back at that. I can't remember what it was, 2015. So what we now, I'm like, whatever age I was, 20 something, late 20s. And but like, you be two types. You can do two things in life: fucking complain about something is shit, or do something about it. And if something pisses you off enough, and you have the right mindset, you do something about it. So at that point, I look back to the young 21-year-old Luke on the gym floor, fucking clueless. I've got a level 2, a level 3, and I've got a sports science degree. I didn't know fuck all about marketing. I didn't know about talking to people, interpersonal skills, nothing. Then I looked at it and I was going, well, I suppose it's one of the things, like, there's not enough good trainers around. What do I need to do? I need to create something that is, and I always used to say, it's the personal trainer qualification you wish you had, but you never had the opportunity to get. Because it wasn't the same generic shit that every training provider gives you. That is out of date, 20 years out of date, still saying, you've got a cock, you have 2,500 calories. You've got a vagina, you have 2,000 calories. Doesn't matter if you're small, tall, active, fat, skinny, whatever it is, they're just generic stuff. So then I reached out to, and at that point, I reached out to Eric Helms, already had that connection with him. And then at that point, there was a transition took where once I started doing these conferences, I was like, cool, but is there a better way that I can use these experts where I'm not having to pay all this money for venues and flights, stuff like that? Can I do that online? And there was. So that's when I launched Elite Fitness Mentoring. And Chris Burgess at the time had Lift the Bar. And Lift the Bar was like, if you're just starting out, go Lift the Bar. If you're already a year in or 2 years in and you want to like higher level stuff, then go to Elite Fitness Mentoring. So then for whatever reason, Dr. Mike Zurdos come on for a webinar, and it was over 2 hours long. And he's the best presenter to this date that I've ever seen. And it's unusual to have American people with UK sense of humor. And he just has that dry sense of humor. And I can just remember at the time, obviously, I was into more bodybuilding, not really powerlifting, and Alan and nutrition. That was the thing. This guy, I'm just like, he's a great presenter. And he was an assistant professor at Florida Atlantic University. And he doesn't have Instagram. He still doesn't have Instagram. And at the time, I was going, well, physique prep is a thing. And so is powerlifting back in those days, like 2015. So I went to Helms and I said, and this was, again, scratching your own itch. So going back saying, what would Luke have wanted when he was 21, now he's 28, to then be able to be successful on the gym floor?
Yeah.
And then my thing there was going, well, I already got people down to like 10% body fat. Is there something I don't know that Eric knows? Because for me, is the best when it comes to education and like natural bodybuilding, contest prep. And I just basically went to Eric and was like, I want you to create a course for a personal trainer that wants to be able to have the knowledge and ability to coach people to get shredded, to get on stage. Create the curriculum. Cool. Mike, no one knows who the fuck you are. But I could, if I was just making money, I could have just gone to Lane Norton and been like, hey, this is what we're going to do. It might have been hard. He probably would have said no because he already had a bigger following and he would have done it himself. But I went to the people that I thought, not who had the biggest reach, but I thought was the best person for that thing. And I went exactly the same to Mike. Said, I want you to create a course, a module, a unit for someone that is a personal trainer already that wants to have the knowledge and capability to coach someone to do powerlifting. And that's how SBS was born. Module 1 was a lot of the actual practical application of being a personal trainer, like regressions, progressions, coaching cues, other programming side of things for different goals. Nutrition, it touched base on nutrition, but not a lot. And then module 2 was Helms on coaching physique athletes. Module 3 was powerlifters. And module 4 was like fitness, business and marketing, which obviously at that point I got a lot better because that's what I was studying.
Yeah.
Then I had 90% margins took. then I actually made money.
That internet money. That internet money. I
Yeah.
posted a screenshot on Twitter, I think it was, a couple of days ago. I found the first transaction email from my first ever internet money in 2010. Sold a pair of ladies' shoes.
There you go.
It's magical. So this is the birth or beginnings of the SPS Academy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of things. Number one, and this is probably good advice for PTs, coaches who are looking at becoming educators, looking at scratching their own itch and creating things that maybe they wish that they had, which is what both of us have done in our career. So the first one, if you can reveal it, is how did you structure those deals with the quote unquote influencers?
Yeah, it was pretty much, I'm sure they won't mind me saying, I think they got a fee when we created it. And at the time, when we first launched it, 2015, it was just screen recordings. And then we went to Miami and we recorded it in like this big old art studio thing where we slept at the time, where there was a dead mouse in the shower. So that was eventful. And Steve, the videographer guy, was the first time we went to Miami to record it. And then we sort of had, like you're creating it and there is no branding as such. There was just like you stole a load of images online. You didn't really, at that point, you don't know about copyright and stuff like that. And they were on, I paid them a fee. I don't think it was much. And then I was just going to be 5% each. So it was 5% of top line revenue, whatever the money was. And that at the time, he did 6 months, every 6 months. So by that point, Cirque, I was like, I gave far too much percentage away before. Don't do it again. So it's like you get, and they're like, they don't know if this is going to be an ongoing thing or whatever it was. They probably got 3 to 5K. At the time, Helms was he still lives in New Zealand. So it was like, right, we've got to pay for him to fly over and this and that. And we was in the Miami studio and they had 10 lessons each, I think. As one's presenting, the other's finishing off their slides. How unsort of prepared it was.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And then, so that was how the deal was. First intake, we had 110. That was August, September 2015. Then we did one. And by that point as well, Cirque, I've been putting on so many conferences and seminars. I know what dates launch best. So if you try and do a seminar or conference at the end of Jan, beginning of Feb, like you want the ticket sales to go on 8 weeks, 6 weeks before, well, that's just right before Christmas. Or it could be people have kids and they have school holidays. So at that point, I sort of had a good idea. And from an academic point of view, school starts back up September. So we launched in September and then we launched in March. So I used to have a running joke. I'd be like, I'll get sex twice a year. Because we'd have a mass amount of signups and money. Like we'd make 50K nights every time we launched. And I suppose that's when I'm not like one of these hippie types where it's like mindset this and mindset that and meditating, ice plunge and stuff like that. I don't do that. I'm like, no, I'll just have a hot shower. But then on the second intake, we only got like 89. Because in my eyes, I was like, well, that's 110 people less to then sign up. And then I got Grant Condone's book of 10X and I read like the first few pages.
What did it say? 10X, 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 10X.
Yeah.
10X.
So then I was like, now I'm going to set the target of 150.
Yeah.
Or 200 or whatever it was. And after like the first few intakes, we consistently got 180 to 185 people every 6 months. And based on that, like Helms and Zulos, we flew them back over. So at the time we had our first student, Nat, and she does illustration. So she went through the first academy and she wasn't a personal trainer. She was just really into fitness and she was a graphic designer who did illustrations. She sent me an email with some of the images. So like as she's doing stuff, she's designing this stuff. And she's like, oh, these are like some things I created. I was like, oh, these are cool. Then we hired her. So then we had it where Nat would be taking these old PowerPoints and illustrating them. And we was probably working on like a 1 to 2 week turnaround. As in when the next intake started, she'd send me the illustration version a week before that it actually was going live for the students. And then we record it, edit it, and like crap. So then I flew Helms and Zerdos over, and I think I got Nat to do module 1 and module 4 because I didn't have them. She probably got close to 100K out of us. She was a student, so gave us £1,000, and then got back like 99 extra £1,000 for the thing. And because that was the thing, she was unique in the essence that she was into fitness. She's gone through the academy, and she could literally just take the PowerPoints and just illustrate them. And what we found was when it was less text heavy bullet point, the lessons were shorter. And it was a really hard learning curve to go from bullet points giving you guides to then have these illustrations with a little bit of text. And it was a lot harder. And we're green screening it. And then it was sort of the second phase, because of cost, was I flew Helms and Zerdos back over. And then she was drawing illustrations with muscles or like strength based. So we adapted that. And we did the SBS Academy from 2015 up to 2018. As you said, every 6 months intakes, marketing lessons. It's a lot easier to market things when they have when you launch stuff rather than just being open every single day. Made decent amount of money on that. When Helms and Zerdos come back over, their percentage increased to like 7.5% each. But again, they did fuck all after that. It was just, and when you're talking about what 185 people on average, it was what, £1,300, still a decent amount of money they're making from a one-time thing. Then in 2018 when we rebranded PTC.
Okay, so before we dive into the reasonings and everything around that and what PTC is, in a few, maybe 3 or 4 bullets, what advice would you give now to maybe a personal trainer or a coach who's doing well and is getting that itch for maybe going into education, mentoring, maybe, 3 bits of advice or takeaways or things to consider?
You're probably already late. Because at the time when I did the SBS Academy, there's one BTN for nutrition. So by the time I was at 2018, then there was more and more academies starting. There's not as many academies now, Suk.
Yeah.
Because I'm a firm believer of like timing as well. So at that point, I felt like, and that's obviously why I made the change, which we'll talk about in a bit. So I'd probably say you're probably already too late to the party because content is so freely available now. And it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Like people, because it's supply and demand. So if Helms wants to build his own products out, unless you are an absolute expert in something, which I wasn't, I was just, and I never had the thing of like, I wanted to be the man because I knew very well there's far more intelligent people in their fields. But I'm like, you're so academic that you're terrible at. And this is why I don't want any of my kids to be academic. Because if you're an academic alley and then you're really good at maths, they go, keep doing maths. And you have no fucking social skills. You don't develop anything. You're so pigeonholed into that. I feel like that was the reason why I could get those people on for a low percentage, because they didn't really know about business. And they knew that if they tried to do it on their own, they wouldn't have had the same knowledge or understanding on how to monetize it and grow it. So I feel like if you're trying to get into education now, you probably have to be a specialist in something, because you're not going to be able to go out and get the people that I got because they're just doing it themselves, because technology has evolved, content has evolved, social media has evolved. And most of the time now, people look at putting valuable content out of a means to then build brand and then look at monetizing it in a different way. Most personal trainers also make this mistake of going, I'm going to create a membership of content and sell it to normal people. Normal people do not want to fucking be told about macronutrients or like learn about shit. You might like learning about stuff. Normal people want you to coach them and get them results. They don't have the time or even want to learn about this stuff. Yes, education is important, because I'm like, an educated client is a client that asks less questions. And that's a beautiful thing, because it means you can take on more clients. But I feel like if I was going back or like advice now, it would be just focus on being able to do more of what is higher ticket, higher price. Because most personal trainers do not have the ability or wants to then be able to grow a massive following, to therefore be able to sell something of a lower price and sell more volume. So my advice would be use education to better serve your current clients, but look at how you can take on, like I've seen you say it before, like, should I do group coaching? 95% of personal trainers shouldn't, because you find it hard enough to get 30 clients paying you £150 a month. Now you're going to say, right, I'm going to try and get 500 people paying me $19.99 a month. It's just an easier route for most people.
Okay. So SBS is going really well. Why the rebrand? Why the change in direction and model for PTC?
It was one of those where when it was young dudes wanting to get shredded to get sex, the name worked really well. But then when we started going down sort of the education route, it was like, oh, they already had a level 2, level 3, or whatever equivalent qualification in whatever country they were in. And I was just like, the name doesn't really match what it is we're doing now. And PTC or PT Collective was actually a company before I rebranded that myself, Chris Burgess and James Conti Mitchell started, when we brought over Alan Aragon, Brad Schoenfeld, James Krieger and Brett Contreras. And at the time, sir, we created PTC and we wanted to go after reps. That was the plan. It was like, right, we're going to be the equivalent of reps. And then, but we all had similar skill sets as such. So it didn't really work out. Like, funny enough, I was looking at Dropbox yesterday because I'm building my website for the personal brand. And I was going back through Dropbox and looking at old. So I was like, let me try and find like the PTC logo, because the one I've got is like low res. And then when I typed it in, it came up with the actual PTC logo that we formed as a company, like a registered actual company, PT Collective. And I was again coming up with stuff, and I was like, well, personal trainer collective. So when people then was like, oh, who you qualified with, it weren't like, oh, Shredded by Science. Like, what the fuck, Shredded by Science? It was, oh, PT Collective. So that was one of the main things. I don't know if it was good or bad. I'd probably say it was bad, and we'll talk about the transition in a bit. But then we wanted to sort of, my thing was, from the goodness of my own heart and being detrimental, was at that time, there's more and more academies. And I thought, we probably need to be a little bit more official now. Like something where it's not a nice to have, but a must have. And then that's when we looking at, right, we're going to go down the level 2, level 3 route. Because at the time we teamed up with a couple of training providers, and our advice to people which weren't personal trainers. So I think about 30% of people that did the SBS Academy, when we got to the latter stages, were just fitness enthusiasts that just wanted to learn. They weren't actually qualified personal trainers that wanted to upskill. So we rebranded PT Collective because it felt like it made more sense to the direction that we were going in. And we started offering the level 2, level 3. And my whole mindset was, I'd rather get them from day one than have them. It was a bigger market. So like, you're just getting them in an earlier stage of their career, and you're helping them more because they've not just done like a little crappy Lifetime or Premier or whatever training provider, because it's the same standards of qualifications, same assessments on online, theory or practical. But our thing was, what was unique to us is everyone, that's when we developed the PT core. And that was, you couldn't just get a level 2, level 3 with us. You had to get PT core as well. So that was my thing of going, I want to go back to help little Luke at 21, where it's going, you go, and the prices that we had were like, we didn't get hardly any money from the level 2, level 3. Our thing was, we just wanted to get people going through the PT core. But when we transitioned and when we rebranded, this is when, at that stage, I invested in De Novo Nutrition, sort of tied together.
Yeah.
So when Eric and Mike was over filming the revised version for SBS, we was walking to this gym, and I was in front because I'm the tour guide Barbie, and I hear them talking. And at the time, I had some money in the bank, And then I'm getting like the big red book, the investor book, and I was like stocks and shares, and I'm bored shitless out of my mind. I'm like, I don't know. And then at that time, I didn't even want to own a supplement company. I was trying to see where I'd invest that money, and I was torn between, well, I didn't want my own gym, but what about if I invested in a gym or a couple of gyms? Not only just gave them capital, but then I took over the marketing side of things, whether it's paid the Facebook paid ads or whatever it would be to build their membership. And I would just have a percentage of their business and get a dividend. And they're talking about Ben Escrow. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. I don't know. I might have known who De Novo Nutrition was. But what was unique about Ben and De Novo is they were like the science-based, evidence-based supplement company. You know, most supplement companies are just like underdose, sell shit, and just get some influencers holding a fucking tub, and then we'll make money. They were talking. I was like, I think Ben's struggling. I think he needs some help. I was like, oh, I'll invest with him. So we had a 2-hour call. And at that time, sir, my financial literacy was this. If there's 100K in the bank, HMRC can come at me because I'll have enough money. That was the level of my financial literacy knowledge. I didn't know about margins, gross profit, net profit, EBITDA. I didn't know any balance sheet. I knew nothing. That was my mindset. But then I invested 50% in the business. It wasn't really profitable. Like I had probably some person with a brain look at the sheets, and that cost me 150K and nearly killed my business to get a financial literacy education.
So it didn't work out.
That. No, like so when I say I invested 50K, and then then you're looking at manufacturing runs and suppliers, and you're looking at inventory and fulfillment and all this other stuff. And because we were it has to have the best ingredients, it has to have the best dosage, and the price was probably higher than majority of other supplements, but the cost of goods per unit was so high. And when in the supplement game with the manufacturing, you can have shitty little manufacturers, which might go, you can do a run of 50 or 100, but the cost of it is so stupidly high, especially from the formulas that we had. Our minimums were 1,000 units, and it's 1,000 units per flavor, because the time it takes to clean out all of the flavoring, to do it, like you can't go, can I have 1,000, can I have 300 of this, 300 of that, 200, like you can't do that. So then I invested probably another 25K just from the money that I had in PayPal. You know what PayPal money is, it ain't real money. It's not in your bank, it's not real money. So I invested probably about 75K. And over 2 years, the mistake I made there was we had one team that was working over SBS as well as De Novo SBS PTC. So at that time, I'm investing in a company. There's no way it's going to work out financially because you just don't have enough capital, enough money. And you're going up against the big boys that do in-house manufacturing, don't care about fucking the quality of ingredients or the dosage of those ingredients. And they've got all of the influencers that are just selling it via them. That's the whole supplement game. So 2 years in, on the last SBS Academy intake, we had a stupid amount of people that went monthly. When normally they would go, it'd probably be 35, 40% would pay up front, and then the rest would pay monthly. But at this point, I'm focusing on building this brand of De Novo and trying to educate people. People don't want education or supplement. They care about, does it mix well? Does it taste well? Does it get them fucking cracked? That's all they care about. They do not care about anything else. Let's be honest. And we try to use our science-based thing to then bring over to De Novo and use that. Well, we haven't got money to pay for these influencers. The ones we did have, athletes, were all powerlifters. It's still a small niche. But we had probably about 80% of people sign up in 2018, the last intake, August, on the monthly. So basically, I'm getting this money coming in each month, and I'm using one team, and I'm paying every single member of staff. Ben's getting paid. Ben was doing the fulfillment. He's taking a hefty fucking salary. I'm taking nothing. Not a pence. And my whole thing was, I'm going to get into investing in this business because at the time, I'm like, I know about business and marketing and supplements. Ben's like the equivalent of me, but far more intelligent. He's like Walter White, like he's stupidly clever. And my whole thing is I'm getting into this because I want to build it. So I'll get mine when we sell for 10 to 20 mil.
Yeah.
Got to the point where 2019, just as we're rebranding PTC and the monthly payments ain't coming in, Cirque, but my monthly outgoings are higher. I'm talking like I'm down 20K in a month. I'm down 30K in a month. I'm going, holy fuck. What the fuck have I've just not done? What have I allowed? Like the thing with supplements, you can sell as many as you want any day, every day. With SBS, it was, well, when we rebranded, we then took on a few more people doing specialist courses, but they're so fucking specific, like coaching obese clients or MMA or whatever it was. When we launched, and at the time, like I had Laura, and Lawrence, when we was at SBS, it was me and him. We did well. It was like he was good at stuff I wasn't good at. I was good at stuff he wasn't necessarily good at, but it was just a two-man army. And then Lawrence's role went into marketing, but he wasn't really a marketer. And he was doing like a marketing qualification. And it was like, it just didn't work. Like the business, having a small team work over two businesses, it didn't work whatsoever. And then my role then is CEO of DeNovo. And then I'm giving like Lawrence all the responsibility of like, here's how to launch, here's how to do that. We launched Cirque for this course. We make like $3,000. I'm like, what the fuck? What the, like, I'm going, it's all right. We got these courses coming. We'll be good. We'll be good. And it didn't, sorry, that's the girlfriend. Must be an emergency. She's fine. She should know I'm on a podcast. So Cirque, like the money is just draining out of the bank account. And I've got to make the decision. So I'm like, Ben, I'm out. I've invested probably 150K, 75K of actual capital, and then all of the money that I'm funding over the year and a half, 2 years. But then I'm out and I'm like, fuck, well, I haven't got an SBS Academy intake coming in. I've got 6 months. And what was the launch, which would have been the SBS Academy, which would have been a 55, 60K night, is now 3K. I'm like, what the fuck? So then I'm like, so I'm out of DeNovo. I've gone. Ben's like, we've got some inventory. It's elemental formulations now with Omar Usuf. They're barely in stock. And the thing was, I'll try and pay whatever I sell, I'll try and pay you off. I haven't seen a fucking pence. Well, money just gone. So that's why I say it's 150K financial literacy business lesson.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to someone thinking about going into partnership with or finding a business partner?
If the numbers don't work, it don't matter. Like the business model, if the numbers don't work, it doesn't matter. And don't start a second business until your first business is on the autopilot. Don't rebrand or try and do too many things at once. Like they're the lessons. Do you know what I mean? Just like know yourself. Know your limitations. Like Ben is completely different to me. But like, it wasn't like we both had the same skill set. It was just, I was playing in the game. I decided to play a game that I'd never win.
Yeah.
It was impossible to win because you're going up against the big boys. And they just have far more margins, far more capital. They've already been in the game. And the approach to getting those people, like I think most of our clients were either science geeks or powerlifters, because we had all powerlifting athletes. Because guess what? Any other influencer, like powerlifters, had some following, and but they didn't have much. So that was pretty much the thing. So I sort of don't try and do too many things at once, because you'll just end up fucking both things.
So DeNovo's gone, backs against the wall. What do you do? What happens next?
I took back responsibility of marketing. I basically had all of my time to then focus back on PTC. And it was Lawrence went when sort of DeNovo was thinking. It was just one of those where it weren't, he's like the role we pushed him into, he just wasn't a good fit for it. And he was trying again, like we gave him an impossible task. And then there was conflict within the team, in personalities. I'm a firm believer you don't really need to get on with people you're working with. And it just got to a thing. So then, therefore, that happened. I then took responsibility back for level 2, level 3. Obviously, reduced overheads there, less staff, and then we're focusing on level 2, level 3. So let's build it. I'll teach the shit. I used to teach it years ago when I was at the college. The standards exactly the same. So then, I think we launch end of year. So it's pretty much just try and damage limitation. The money's going down, but I've made the decision now to then stop the hemorrhaging as such. And then we got into the same mindset. We're going to launch a PT qualification. I can't remember exactly. I looked the other day because we stopped doing it in July. We've had 408 students sign up to do a level 2, level 3 in a few years. It's not bad. But again, the cost of fulfillment and services and stuff like that is a lot high. So we launched, and stupidly I was like, oh, we'll do a launch and everyone will sign up, and then we'll shut it down in 2 weeks. Well, it's a totally different ball game. Because if you want to become a personal trainer, you're either a MILF at home and the kids have gone to school, you just finished university like I was, you're a graphic designer, you're a teacher. They come from so many different backgrounds, different ages. If someone wants to be a personal trainer, they're looking to start right now. If someone wants to be a personal trainer, they're going to go and Google and type in best personal trainer course, London, online personal trainer course. So then I was like, well, we can't just do intakes now for personal training, because based on what the market's telling me. So then we had to open up shop. Then I had to get a salesperson in, and then they would then train them up, get them to then have a business phone, and then have people book in for a call because they want to be a personal trainer. So therefore we was open all year round. But then content marketing is my game. That's what it was. Always social media marketing. I'd look at them and I could be like, why all these other training providers, combined all these training providers together, they haven't got our total for, they might have 50% of what we had following wise. I'm going, oh, this would be, we're just focused on social media marketing. We'll get people from that. Social media marketing works really well when you have a target market, which is a personal trainer or fitness enthusiast. But when you've got from the age of 18 up to 50, different backgrounds at different stages in their life, social media marketing does not work to get people who want to become a personal trainer. What works? What all these old dinosaurs, I used to laugh at them, old dinosaurs companies would be like, and most of them are extinct. I was right. They did become extinct because all they focused on was SEO and PPC. Well, I haven't got money for PPC. I ain't got the time to do SEO. And SEO nowadays is nowhere near what it was years ago. So it's a case of social media marketing, word of mouth. We've done an all right job when you think about it. We've got 408 people. But again, I was the market. The reason why these people do that strategy was because that was the only thing that worked. But all what they did was PPC started getting more and more expensive. SEO got worse. And for them to get people, it was landing page, put your email, download your syllabus, and at the end of each month, 50% off. Then their margins are shit. And most of them they didn't really care because they'd have a company, a finance company, where you could go on there and you go, I want to pay this off over 4 years. And the finance company take 20%, and you just get all of the money that would be the thing. And then they're a debt collector, and they don't fucking care if you pass or not. So then the business was still making decent revenue, but I've gone from 90% margins to now maybe our gross margins were good. I've always run at probably 80 to 90, 95% gross margins. But then it went down a bit because when we was doing the level 2, level 3, we had to pay Active IQ, registration fees, manuals and stuff like that. We wanted them to have a little PTC box with some goodies and shit. But all of that, the cost of fulfillment, the cost of goods were high, but the gross margins were decent still. However, I've now got to have a full-time salesperson, and we're not bringing in enough leads Like they get on a base salary with some commission. And because we're trying to use content marketing to bring the leads in, it's not working. If we use PPC or SEO or whatever it was, it would have been a lot easier. But then the quality of the leads would be a lot less. So our conversion rate would be a lot lower because everything pretty much come from word of mouth. Oh, I want to be a personal trainer. I've asked a trainer, they follow you on Instagram. They've told me to come to see you. And so the administrative costs, the overheads of just the team went up. Therefore, I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, revenue's pretty much the same as what it was with SBS days. But where the fuck's my money? Where is my money? Because once the VAT man comes and takes it, I'm like, cool. Then I'm paying myself. Like I pay you do certain things. I pay myself like £791 and 86p or 66p, and then I'll take dividends out. But my mindset was always, I'm gonna get mine when I get mine. And it's always be like, I'm in it for the long game. I'm in it for the long game. And I suppose, yeah, we move on. If there's anything there, I can sort of move on to how I then sort of in the halfway through my sabbatical year.
Yeah.
There's questions you want to talk about before we move on.
Yeah, no, that's great. So obviously we've made that transition to PCC, and it's gone okay. It's not the same as what SBS was in terms of personal income or profits. Mm-hmm. But then recently, as we've spoken about quite a bit, you've gone into retirement. So what triggered retirement, as we've joked about, and what are you up to?
Yeah. So when we did Black Friday, not this year, last year, we looked at a week after or 2 weeks after how many people were actually logged on and started on their course. And it was like 89 or 90% hadn't logged in.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the business model, we're just selling courses, and they're online courses. And you can look at all the research out there. The longer the course, the lower the success rate is. The less live interaction with tutors, the lower the success rate. So then again, I'm going, well, we're being very transactional here. As in, like, once someone signed up for the course, sign up for the course. Yeah, we've got multiple courses. Most of them maybe are not relevant to them. Who's looking at that business model and is going, okay, we're going to launch PT coaching. And that's where we're going to coach personal trainers in their business. But as you know, sir, most people just focus on, and for good reason, as I've found out, is the whole marketing, just sales, get acquisition phase. They're not looking at all about the fulfillment. So our unique thing was, well, we're going to look at all elements, the acquisition and the fulfillment. And the people that naturally attracted to us was, and the price point we put, again, I just did like a 3-month pilot, and I'm so glad I did. And it was like 350, and then it went up to £450 per month. And I set it up, I had all the automations, and it was good. Like, we had really good results with the people, but they're at the earlier stage of their career. And then what I was spending, even though I had like Tom, head of training, Laura, who was doing more of the finance stuff, Joe doing more of the social media video edit and stuff, like, and Hannah, head of nutrition, if we needed her. And as you've done like OFB business mentoring, everyone's doing it but then you're only working with the 5% of people that have enough money. And I was working with people. Most mentoring would probably target someone that's already earning 3K plus 5K and go, cool, you've got a following, but you have no, like, I'm going to take you from 5K to 10K. It's a lot easier to take someone from 5K to 10K than I'd say from 2K to 5K. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah, well, maybe lower. So I think 2 to 5 might be similar to 5 to 10, but from taking someone to maybe they haven't started working with clients online yet to the first to 3K or whatever, that's different. It's harder, definitely. But if somebody's already got a bit of a following, they've already been consistent or active, got a bit of engagement, it's usually no drama getting them clients. Whereas if they're not, and they haven't been consistent, or like, oh yeah, I used to post on social media, but I've not posted for a little bit. How long's a little bit? Oh, last year. Like, okay, well, you're gonna have to do that for a few months first.
Yeah.
So I agree.
So we wanted to be a bit different, where it was like, okay, we're focused on the acquisition and fulfillment side of it as well. So it's like you have access to our courses. We didn't give them all courses at once, but it was good to a certain degree. But then what I found was, even though I had these other people there, I was still doing 90% of the work. So I've gone from not having any meetings, and I had a good. It was a test in the waters. Because then what we had was they could then book in specialist calls like 15-minute calls. So if it's training related, they could book it in with Tom. If it was finance related, book it in with Life. If it was anything business related or marketing, it'd book in with me. If it was sales, it'd book in with Alec. And then long story short, my diary was just full of people asking. And it just suffocated me again. So therefore, when I looked at it, gone.
I was going to say, is that why it was time for retirement or time for a bit of a break?
Yeah, because I feel like that was the thing where I was like, I come to the realization, you either work with the top 5-10% of personal trainers, and probably the business model to work is mentoring, coaching to make money within the industry that we're in. Because personal trainers are a starving crowd, but they're also, if you look at the majority, they're skint. So again, the mentoring people are looking at people that already got money, enough money to therefore pay for their mentoring. So I'm doing it, and we did it for 3 months, and I was just like, no. And then I was just about to go away on holiday, and I've looked at the finances for the year. Oh, cool. X amount of revenue. Why am I the lowest paid motherfucking member of staff in this team? That ain't happening. I'm 36 years of age. Boom. Everyone, goodbye. I'm having a year off. I don't need you anymore. Sorry, and that's why we're here now. 2023, the year of me. And PT Collective's still there, and that's the thing, I'm looking at how can it is what it is. It sells courses, really good courses for people that are probably earlier in their career. But my overheads now are not 30, 40K a month. It's a lot lower because it's just me and one like freelancers to help with certain things. So it comes to that point there where I'm going, I always knew my worst case scenario would probably be better financially and time wise than what I was currently facing, which was, and if I wanted to, I could go back to coaching and stuff like that. But I'm like, I just want a year off to then work out what it is I want. I know what I don't want more than what I do want. And I've never been one of these vision guys, big purpose and stuff like that. I've never been that way. So it was a case of, I need this time now to have the headspace, spend more time with the family. Because I feel like if you ask even rich kids, if you could go back, would you want all the holidays and nice things you had, or would you actually want to see your dad? They'd probably say, I want to see your dad. That was a motivating factor. And then it was just a case of going, I just want a year off. I've been doing it for a long period of time, since 2013, like 10 years. Always doing it, always doing next thing. Probably, again, going back down to my personality, I hate boring shit. I like new stuff all the time. So it's going, right, I need to get away from this. I need to reduce all my outgoings. And therefore, I need to then have that headspace to work out what it is I want to do my next steps. And that's build a personal brand.
Which takes me nicely on to my next point. I'm conscious of time. I know you've got a call soon. So 2023, the year of you. Very quickly, what is it?
Me doing me being selfish. And by me being selfish, by me being selfish this year and just looking after me, I'll probably give the most I've ever given in any year. What I mean by that is me just putting out content that interests me, content that's slightly wider than personal trainers, going out, testing myself, new challenges, and having the time to go do the things that I want to do like learning, enjoying stuff, teaching the stuff I want to teach. I love talking, as you can tell. To getting on stage, presenting more, doing stuff, just going outside my comfort zone, and just being like, just leave me the fuck alone. I don't have any big ambitions or goals. I'm purposely going, just focus on 2023 being a year of me, and the byproduct of that will be I'll help more people this year for free. And then
I love it.
By having PT Collective and setting that up more of an e-commerce play and more automated with systems. I've got someone helping me with some stuff now with that. We're probably, the revenue won't be as much, but I'll be able to take home more money. And by bringing in money from that, it enables me to have more time to just put stuff out for free under a personal brand without the need to try and monetize and without the stress of that. But that is 2023.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask you 2 finishing questions, then I'm going to let you go for your call. First one, what's something that you hate about the fitness industry?
I said I don't truly hate anything because I think it takes up too much emotional energy, which I don't really like. I don't want to be that. I'm probably quite negative by default, so I try not to be. The thing I disliked enough, though, because I wanted to give you an answer, is education for personal trainers. So what did I do? Did something about it. Created a personal trainer qualification, which you had, but you didn't have the opportunity. Yeah.
And to finish on a positive note, what's something that you love about the industry?
I love that 99% of personal trainers that get in to become a personal trainer is their purest of intentions of helping other people because they've had fitness impact their lives. And most personal trainers don't get into it because it's the money and stuff like that. But 99% of it get into the industry from like really nice, good intentions of helping other people.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Cool. Luke, thank you very much for joining me and for your time. If people want to find you on the internet, where should they go?
It's Luke Johnson, PTC. It may change. It may be different, but yeah, go to there. You could go to my website now, but it's just literally a template. It's lukejohnson.site because the .com's coming up in a couple of months, so I'm going to try and buy it. But yeah, just Luke Johnson, PTC.
Amazing. We'll link to that in the show notes. Luke, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Cheers, sir.